And the thing that I've learned through, whether it's the dinosaur or the dragon or the dark closet or whatever, just that terrifying place where we don't really want to, peel away the layers, is that it really is our desire in disguise.
Kimberly, I'm
Mm.
so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm
Um,
sad to be here. I'm finally like, you and I haven't really, like, we've done a lot of voice memos back and forth talking, but we haven't really got to like dive in. And you'll have to forgive me if I interrupt, because a lot of times when I get excited about something, I might interrupt.
hey, same here, but I
Mm.
I feel that the best conversations happen from like when we're interacting and then something comes up and then, going back and forth. And I think that that's kind of the theme also energetically, if I may use that word, because I think that the like things are shifting. Something new is coming up. And I was just listening to a video. It was made by this amazing photographer, Olga Popius, and she was mentioning how business is not the same. How it's more about aligning with yourself. It's about your energy. In the end of the day, it's about your energy. And this is something that I would love to talk with you about: business, energy, being authentically aligned with yourself. But before going there, if I would have to introduce you, you would be, I would say that you're my favorite artist. But you're my
Oh,
favorite artist with words because how you use words to not only to paint a picture, like if you don't follow Kimberly on Instagram, like go there immediately now. It's what's your name?
my handle is at School of Holistic Design.
Yeah. So there you have it. It's not only breathtakingly beautiful, but the words you use to paint a picture. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. So thank you. That's a huge compliment. Um, it's funny because I'm not very good at the business side of of like social media. And so, a lot of people like plan out their content calendar, and I there's a moment of inspiration. I find an image that captures what I'm feeling, and then I put the words to it, and then it's gone.
Mm,
And I have no idea what I just wrote, and it's just gone. Like it's that energy you talked about, right? So I just let my energy tell me what to do, and I just follow that, and I do what I'm told.
And I think that's one of the shifts that we're seeing. Like you're directly jumping into like the deep end. Like when we're talking, like from my perspective, because what I do is business coaching, social media coaching is all about sales. And what I've seen and what I've witnessed is that the one size fits all formula thinking, the post 3 times a day thinking, that where you have to, like you have to have a content pillar for this, and then you have to have this and this, and you have your checklists and whatever. It doesn't really work that way. It can work for some people, but it's not efficient for everybody.
Yeah, it's that I feel like it's that Western type A mentality, right? It's not, there's no balance in that. It's a lot of drive and a lot of push, and I think it takes the fun out of things. At least for me personally, like it's hard for me to do things the way I'm told.
But maybe that's also like it's also staying true to yourself. And to be honest, like I have people coming to me like, hey, would you like I need someone to do my social media for me because I don't feel like doing it. I don't want to go there. It doesn't feel like me. But the thing is, from my perspective, like what if we would just shift things and just let ourselves, open the gates, let ourselves to go free, roam, feral, and just like it's an avenue of self-expression. And when we're talking about selling your services or like when you're an entrepreneur, it's all about you. It comes to your vision of the world, it comes to your energy, and you have to be in balance.
Yes, yes. Like you have to be in balance and you have to be, I mean, it's a risk, right? Like it's like when we're putting something that we're passionate about in the world, that's all heart. And so trying to blend like, okay, this is the way the book or this is the formula for being a success in 30 days or whatever, like that's not heart, that's head. And so I
Exactly.
feel like if we can blend the two, or if we can find, which I think is what you were saying, like if we can find our way that has heart, like, okay, I'm going to find the balance of doing posts when I'm inspired versus maybe doing 10 posts when I'm inspired that has a little
Exactly.
more strategy to it, right? Like I don't know what the what the answer is, but I'm a captive audience for whatever the answer is.
And to be honest, I have to say that I write out of inspiration.
Hmm.
Like it's for me, let's say social media, especially Instagram, it's a platform for me to put my thoughts out there. It's not like I have everything figured out when I put things there, but I find that it's the process of writing that it's kind of bringing me back to alignment with myself and back to the things like, okay, so what has been going on? Instead of just maybe posting things that are already in their form, like, oh, this is easy peasy. I know how this looks like. No, it's more about a process of going in and figuring things out. Like, how do I really feel about this? And and yeah, and I think that's authentic. Like when we think of authenticity as a way of also not only doing sales, but like living your life.
Yes, yes. And how much of that, how much of how we live our life and how we feel about how we're living our life or how we feel moment to moment, how much of that versus what we're doing with whomever we're with or how we're doing our, social media, how much is influenced by just what's within us versus what we see others doing, what we think we
Mhm.
should be doing, right? Like if I'm getting a lot of likes off of one type of post, then all of a sudden I feel like more pressure to do more of that thing. So I get that kind of feedback instead of it just being in a capsule with me, myself, and I, and and thinking like, okay, like what do I want to share? Like what makes me feel
Mhm.
good? What feels good right now? Because when it comes from that place, then it doesn't really matter what other people think. And more times than not, people are really going to love it.
Exactly. So, like a personal question, like what do you do? Like when you get those like certain amount of likes on a certain type of post and you get that pressure, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that I just love, it's such a good one of those inner lessons or, inner like the discomfort thing is when Instagram like changes their algorithm.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, you're used to getting like that normal number of likes, and then all of a sudden it plummets.
Hmm.
And I spend a lot of time like trying to make something really lovely. And I just like I definitely catch myself like, okay, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this for the applause? Are you doing this instead of like, and then I can get back to a place where it's like, okay, I reached the people I needed to reach. The people I needed to connect with, we've connected, and I have no idea where that's going to lead, but I just have to trust, right? Like I
But it's
think
out there. It's exactly, it's out there.
yeah, like it happened. And maybe in a year, someone else will see it and, who knows? But I guess, like, I really believe in the, and talk about going into the deep end fast, but I really that, like, our words and our intentions and our thoughts and our actions don't stop there. Like, I really believe that there is this unseen organizing force that we're in a dance with. And so it really is like our awareness and our intention that's seeding everything else. And this is a practice that like I have to practice. It's not always easy, but if I am doing something for the outcome or for the reward, then I've sort of like that's where I slip, right? Like that's where I sort of
Mm.
miss the point.
And that's a new way of thinking too. But it's like it's the practice itself becomes the path in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is so one of the ways I think of it is like I believe that our desire is not this selfish thing within us. I believe our desire is actually a seed within us that is like dropping breadcrumbs to what, our dream life, our highest potential, whatever. And that it's our obligation to listen to our desire.
Exactly. And it's not selfish in a way that we've maybe learned to understand selfishness. But what if it's an glimmer? It's an inside calling, something that kind of just catches your attention, and you just have to follow it. Or you don't have to, but usually it just takes you astray because you can feel like okay, maybe before going this deep, Kimberly, who are you? What do you do?
Oh. And that in and of itself is a really big question. Um, so I'm Kimberly Garner, and like on the business card is I'm a holistic designer. And what does that mean? It it's two words that to me help us become our highest potential, right? Because and so basically I teach the relationship between what's going on within our home and how it relates to what's showing up in our life and what's going on within our mind, and how to use our space as a way to move closer toward the outer life that we want for ourselves, but also the inner life that we want to experience. And there's not a name for that yet because it's, it's not a banker, it's not all these things. And so I don't have the quick, I'm a blah, blah,
I love
blah.
how you I loved how you went into it's not a banker. I'm like, why not?
Well, it's a different type of anchor, right? It's a spiritual
I love
banker.
that. That I love.
uh, Yeah, so I have a school where I teach people how to become holistic designers and also integrative coaches. So my whole thing is that we are human beings, and for most of human existence, we've lived in harmony with the external world, with nature, and our home is a big part of our human ecology. And so I feel like once we bring our awareness to the influence that our environment
Mm.
has, our living environment has on our well-being, then it's much easier to move toward what we want. And I think ultimately, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what we all want is to reach our highest potential, whatever that looks like, to reach self-transcendence, to become self-actualized. So, and the great thing is like this sort of approach, whether you're in survival mode or whether you're like working your way towards self-actualization, it all applies.
I just wrote two things like two words, fully you, because from my perspective, and I think this is what kind of why I was really drawn into your words and your writings was because you come from like I have a weird relationship with the word self-development because I don't think that we're developing anything. We're becoming more aware of what is like what's the I don't want to say root cause, but what's the essence of your being? What's the deepest nature within you? Like when you peel all the layers, what's in there? And fully you. One thing, like I am a holistic business coach. And what I do is around how to do sales and how not to sell yourself short. And the idea, what I've been playing around with has been around the fact when like when you grow into your body, like when you take the space that you were meant to take, like the fact is that everybody, like all of us, we do have our individuals, like the energetic space, if you may, like you have a form, you have your desires, like you have the thing that is calling something within you to put out there. And we do a really great job of, masking that there. And then you kind of like, you grow into this way and then you mask that there and then you go this way. And soon enough, we're all tangled up, crooked, and hunched back. And where I see it is that when, like, if sales isn't spiritual, like, I don't know what is, because it comes to the really core of not only money. If money doesn't, raise any emotions in you, like, wow. If not selling your services doesn't, raise any intense emotions, like, wow.
Yeah,
And if that's not a dance between, okay, where am I now? Where do I want to be? And what's really going on with me? Like, who am I? Like when you go back, who am I? What do I really want to do? What's really interesting me? Like, if that's not going towards self-actualization, like, I don't know what is.
oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, for me, I think if someone said, name five of the hardest things you've ever had to do, I think one of those would be to write my first about me for my website.
Oh my goodness, that's hard.
That, that brought me into tears so many times. Like, I think I might have gone to therapy over that because the first time having to be seen and to tell the world who I was and
Mm-hmm.
that I mattered and what I had to say mattered, like, horrible. That was horrible. And so, yeah, so like sales and like it is a spiritual process. Absolutely. And debilitating one too.
Yeah. And the thing is, you're constantly, I don't want to say always growing, but you're constantly changing. Because, and this is what I love about your work, because every environment that you go into, they bring up new elements from within you if you let them. So, all the spaces, all the environments you go into, and to those people who don't know me, So me and my husband, we sold our life in Finland. It was 2020, yeah. And we sold like literally everything. We sold our house, we sold the car, we sold the wedding china, all the things that spend you spend your time and you spend a ton of money just collecting. And then we sold everything, packed our bags, took our dog, and we moved into an RV on Main Island. And then the world as we knew it changed, and we were forced into looking, okay, so are we going to go on an adventure? We really don't have anything to fall back to. Or are we just going to see, like, hey, what's going to come up? And
Yeah,
here
that's
we
true.
are. And to be honest, re I don't want to say, I'm going to use this word, reinventing myself, as in doing the work of going deeper within and actually seeing, who the fuck am I? What do I want in life? What are my creative purposes? Like, what do I want to build? What do I want to create? It wouldn't have been possible without moving, changing the space, getting more space between me and the people and the behaviors that were so common, because like we're creatures of habit. Hey, I'm Linda, I'm da ga da ga da. And then you fly to the other side of the world, to gorgeous BC, and hi, I'm Linda, I do. Oh, do I?
I love that. It's your story, right? You severed your connection with all of the old stories. It's like you emancipated yourself, right? Or you liberated
Hmm.
yourself from, and it doesn't mean that anything you left was good or bad, right? It's just there's a story that gets to be severed if you wanted it to be severed. And severed might
Hmm.
not be the right word, but reinvented, like you said, like a new, retold.
Retold. I love that. And also it's part of the journey. If it's part of my journey. And if we go into the deep end again, it's part of my family stories too. Because all these stories that we tell ourselves, it's not only in our heads, it's in our bodies too. The very first stories that we hear, the very first beliefs are transferred to us through touch, through the emotional environment where your nervous system is being held. What type of environments have you been held? How have you been held? And these stories, these beliefs, they go back generations, generations, generations. And so, from my perspective, looking at your stories, and this is why I love your work so much, is that you shine the light to what are the stories that you're telling yourself? How is your environment, how is your home reflecting your stories? And are they really taking you where you want to go?
Yeah, yeah, there's so much that happens in the space between what we're observing and then what we're translating, right? Like everything that we're taking in with our five senses, whether it's how someone's engaging with us at the grocery store or, how our home feels, we're interpreting and translating those experiences. And back to the word story, we're creating stories that might not even be true. And so I think,
Exactly.
right? So like just bringing our awareness to the fact that our thoughts are really like mostly there's stories that we're making up. And so if we can just be aware of like Oh, there's some interpretation going on in my life that I just took for granted or just assumed was true, but now I sort of need to put on the brakes and start poking holes in all these stories that are running rampant in my mind. And I feel like our home is a great place to do that because it's the one environment that we actually have control of, right? In our lives.
Mm.
Like we get to control the environment of our home, but step outside that door, we don't have that liberty. And so we can be tactical in where and how we put things and intentional so that we can sort of like quiet that noise that's happening on the inside.
And also become aware of the emotions that are attached to certain things, like physical things. I remember this. So, after moving on to Main Island, I got headhunted pretty fast. So we moved to Victoria and we rented out a place that was already furnished. And that was really interesting. After selling everything, going to a fully furnished home where I had no say into the furniture, the style, the design, anything, the colors, and it was it was it was really liberating to buy the first piece of, I think it was an like it was one of these air machines, air purifiers
Okay.
that I bought, and I was so intentional with it. I think I went to it was a drugstore or something, and I just checked out all the different options. And okay, so what's the price? What are the features in this? And what do I need? Okay, what do I really want to have? Like, do I need this? And I think the whole purchase or the purchasing process took over like 2, 3 weeks because I was so intentional. Where do I want to put my money? Because this is the first thing that I start building my new life upon. And it was like an air purifier or air conditioner or whatever it was. But it felt so good because everything was there. And I was really focused on not to bring anything unnecessary into my life in that extent anymore. Because one of the reasons why I really had the need, I really felt like we need to have a change, was that the environment that I had created to myself, it wasn't doing any good for me. Like not only the physical symptoms, the stress, but also the just feeling anxious all the time. I remember we're outside walking with my husband, and I was like going like this, and you know, am I here? And it's like, is that really life?
Well, that's really interesting because you you're we're getting close to this area of this another deep dive, right? Of like consciousness and and I just got back from Deepak Chopra's last retreat. And so
How was it?
it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, yeah, it was incredible. And it's still working its juju. And the whole thing was pretty much about consciousness. And you, where do I even begin? But what you're saying about like, am I really here? Is this even me? Like, that's a really good question, right? Like we have the ego and the thing we identify as me, but like one of the things he says, if you want to find out who you are, like list all the things you are not first.
Mhm.
And so like we are here in these physical bodies, and this is going to sound out there, like we are here in these physical bodies, but really our consciousness is not the capsule, right? Like this is the vessel, and our consciousness is beyond the chatter of the mind. Our consciousness is like whatever brought you and I together on this path, like that had more to do with our consciousness than coincidence or us searching for each other somehow.
So the craziest thing, I don't know if you've heard this. This is something that my business coach, it was a quote. She told me it was like it was down the line of if you don't have serendipitous accidents or coincidences, or yeah, if you don't have any serendipitous action going on in your life, are you even doing business?
You know what? And she's totally right on. Like she's totally
Hmm.
right on. Like if you don't have synchronistic events, serendipity happening in your life, um,
Are you even doing business right? Like are you even in business? Because you have to be in business to do business. And if you're the business,
yeah, it's like, did you turn your antenna on?
exactly,
Because if you turn your
exactly,
antenna on, stuff is going to happen.
exactly. And I love how you use the word antenna because another thing that I've been playing around with, because we usually talk about sales, and this is from my perspective. Yeah. So again, if people don't know this, just drop in here that I've worked my whole career in sales, tech, IT, sales executive on both sides of the Atlantic, and really push startup. It's a really addictive mentality. Like it's a lovely environment to be in. Like the dopamine and the constant pushing and like you're conquering something constantly. You're making things happen. And but the thing is, you can't be like you can't have your feet on the gas pedal constantly and have your sixth gear on, especially if that's not aligned with you and you're like, because another thing, what I came like after two burnouts, you kind of learn the lesson that, okay, like you only have X amount of energy per day. How am I going to use that energy?
Well, and then put little kids on top of that, and then
Exactly.
how much energy do you have?
Yeah, and I have two,
And they're little. What are their ages again?
7 months and just over two.
Oh my goodness. Like the fact that we're even doing this says a lot about you. Like I think my youngest was 3 before I like peeked my head above the surface.
But I have to say, I started my business when I was pregnant with my first one. I went to be a full-time entrepreneur when I was pregnant with my second one. I think it was like 3 months pregnant. Because, again, like this goes into neuroplasticity and into your mind and brain and your environment. Because for me, I've never felt as creative. Like I've been my most creative, most expansive self during pregnancy.
Isn't that interesting? Like while you're
Hmm.
creating, right? Like your body's creating and then your mind was like wanting to expand and create too. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And also you come so aware, like this now I'm just talking about my experience because every experience is different. But when I became so aware of all of my actions, the words that I was using, the future that I was like, I became so aware of everything that was going on around me that if I wasn't staying true to myself or if I wasn't acknowledging something, like my body was yelling, like, hey lady, here, look here. And I had to answer the call because I didn't want to go back on the path of ignorance, whatever. Oh, emotions coming up, whatever. Yeah. Oh, I can just, take this emotion and just overanalyze it and make it to be something else. But now I really had to go within and start to look at, okay, so why am I anxious? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? Is there boundary somewhere that should be, or like, is there a lack of a boundary? I think there was this great meme on Instagram, like my first attempt of building a boundary, and there was a gate, and and then there was a boundary of like the gate was this long and the fence was like this. And people who are not watching the video is like super. It was short,
Like
but
you could step right over it.
oh yeah, you didn't even need to open the gate. And I think this, brings us back to creativity and your home and your environment, because emotions are, it's the way that our bodies are communicating with us about our true needs, like our biological needs. What do I need to thrive? Like, what do I need in order to thrive? And if your home is not supporting your growth, your authentic living, what is?
Yeah. Yeah. It's if our home isn't supporting us and what we want,
Mm.
then it it's getting in our way, right? Because it's meant to be a supportive like ally to help us get us to where we want. And if you look at primitive cultures and how they oriented their home and certain areas of the home, they all followed a certain pattern. And we've sort of lost that. And so one of the things, like you were talking about boundaries, that I just want to offer is that our front door is where we get to, it's our place of boundaries, right? Like we get to choose who's allowed to cross that threshold, right? Like we meet people at the door, they can either come in or they're not allowed to come in. But the same is true with like when we buy things, when we bring in junk mail, when we buy things that were just a product
Mm.
of, emotional shopping or gossip or, speaking badly about someone, arguments. Like we get to consciously decide, okay, what are my boundaries and what is allowed to cross that boundary. And when we bring that intention to our front door, then all of a sudden, when we cross that threshold, that feels a little bit better, right? Because
Mm.
we're protecting those values, we're protecting those things that are going to support and bolster us. So, anyway, I just wanted to like throw out when you were talking about boundaries.
And the thing is, I you cannot have a form without boundaries. Like we're talking, at least I feel that there is a lot of talk about authenticity, being authentic in your life, being authentic in your business, doing sales authentically. But if like you cannot say a wholehearted yes if you don't say no. And if you let everybody come in with their dirty shoes and just take your energy, because the fact is whatever you're doing, wherever your point, like where you put your mind into, where you're concentrating, where you're putting your thoughts into, it's taking your energy, the X amount of energy that you have, metabolical energy, the food you eat, the sleep you have, and that's, like what you have to use for that day. And the idea of, oh, I'll just do this and I'll just do this and I'll just do this. The good thing running a business, being a mom of two young ones, is that you become really clear on priorities
Yeah,
and
what's
your
working, what's not.
boundaries. Yes. And if it's not working, hey, yeah, pushing it. Yeah, I've long gone. Yeah, whatever. Like, it's not a whatever thing. It's more of a, okay, I have to reinvent this. This is not working for me. Like you were talking about the social media part, like doing, the push, 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 more of a type A, like, hey, I'm going to force this into a form that has to work. It's not doing good for me. It's depleting all of my energy, but I'm pushing it. It's yeah. And you're the business. You're the golden goose.
Yeah, yeah, it has to resonate, right? And we just have to make sure that we're getting that balance between what feels right for me and, you know, I know people say like, what's your why? And it's like, the more that we can behave in alignment with what our values are, then the better everything's going to flow, right? I mean, um, yeah, and you mentioned like, like the calories we take in, the nutrition we take in, and how that, affects our metabolism and our vitality. And like when thinking about this, sort of digressing, but in thinking about our home, we want to think about like the sensorial input, and this is our relationships too, right? Like it's our whole environment, not just our home. It's the friendships we're choosing, the relationships we're choosing, what we're choosing to watch on TV or listen to the radio or watch on our phone. All of these things are like sensorial nutrition or sensorial poison, and we want to be really discerning with what we're giving this vessel of our body through our senses. And so not just like food and taste, but also visually, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we listening to? What are we touching? Because all of those things, like they all have their own energetic like frequency and their own. And what does energetic frequency mean? It means it affects how we feel, right? Like all of those
That's
things.
it. And it doesn't have to be, a woo woo juju, whatever. It's just this color brings up certain emotions in me. This design, like how my windows are designed. I like for me, the visual, like the look and feel, and I'm talking about feel. I'm
Mhm.
really particular about paper, pen, frames,
Same.
artwork, colors, books. Oh my goodness, like yeah, I can see your books.
I know
But
it's
it's
sort of the way like you can tell a lot about a person by looking at their bookshelf, which is also like
mm-hmm.
walks into your home, like that's sort of letting them see your soul in a lot of ways because our home is telling a story. Yeah, so you
I
can
love
tell a
that.
lot about
Go go there. Go
go
there.
there. So it's like when we allow someone into our home, we make ourselves a bit vulnerable, right? Like we're inviting vulnerability and we're inviting intimacy. And just by the act of someone crossing that threshold. And so it's it's an honor to be able to go into someone else's home, right? Because you're saying what's happening is the person saying, I trust you enough to let you see parts of me that most people don't see. And as we walk into our home or someone else's home, there's a relationship between the intimacy and the vulnerability based on how far into the home we get to go. So, a vacuum salesman comes and knocks on our front door, and we maybe let them step into the front door. Maybe we trust them. And then maybe if they seem really nice and they're doing a good job, maybe we invite them into the living room. But that's it, right? Living room. We're not going to cook breakfast for them, and they're certainly not going to get near the bedroom or bathroom. But then, our partner, our lover comes home, and there we can go all the way through the house with them because there's that deeper intimacy. And then the bathroom is the most vulnerable and intimate spot in the house. And there are very few people that are allowed in that space with us. And sometimes people let their partners in the bathroom with them regardless of the activity. But children are probably the, like across the board, children are the ones that it doesn't matter if you're pooping or taking a shower or whatever, like the kids get free reign to go wherever they want to go. And, and it speaks to that, like that vulnerability, right? Like
They're
that.
fully open, like they're open, and 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 this goes also to the emotional side. They anything that's going on in their bodies, it comes up as emotions, because there
Mm,
is always like, be like, when you like, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about, let's say, anger or frustration, grief, sadness, fear. There's always a biological need that's kind of like, that's the body's language. And if we only address the behavioral level, oh, don't be sad, don't be angry, or like, oh, you work certain, you detach from your body, or not going too deep into that end. But the thing is, emotions are telling what our bodies need in that situation. And also, it's what we have been habituated to, what we have learned to be safe. What environment is safe for us? What do I need? What kind of relationship do I need? And whether or not this is true per se, the emotions always carry it's information. Like you were talking about the home, bringing us information about our stories. Emotions are the story about ourselves. Like, what do I need? What are my authentic needs so that I feel safe, so that I feel connected, and so that I can thrive?
yes, yes. And it's all stored in our body. I mean, and that's why it's so important that we have a safe space. And it's important that we do let our feelings, I was going to say guide us, but we want to be really aware of our feelings, right? Because one of the most important things that I don't think we're really encouraged to do is feel what we're feeling, right?
Mm.
Like we have an emotion and then it's either an acceptable emotion or not an acceptable emotion. And so if it's not acceptable, then we just sort of like stuff it down and we don't let it happen, which is only creating, right? It's like that 3-year-old that we're not giving attention to. Like the problem's not going to go away. It's just going to get louder. And so there's a couple different sides to feelings. It's like letting ourselves feel what we feel. And that might be crying and not knowing why we're crying. Like someone could say something that we're listening to, and all of a sudden a huge swell of emotion comes and it just needs to be released. And so I think like that's one of the great things about our home is that like where do we feel safe crying? Where do we feel safe like letting our emotions out? Like the bedroom and the bathroom are two places where I think, people feel most safe like crying and letting all of that out. Um and then the other part of feelings is like that, like acknowledging and validating, like back to what we were saying about desire in the beginning. Like you said, like our feelings are our navigation system. Our feelings are how we keep ourselves safe, but also how we follow our passion and how we find the relationships that we really connect with. And so I think having like, you know, I don't even know which grade we would start this because I feel like so much of what we're trying to get back to as grown-ups, we came into this world as children with, right? And so it's not like back to what you said about self-development, it's almost more like self-excavation,
Yeah,
right?
and returning to those parts, you have this amazing post with the child, and what part of yourself would you like? Do you want to bring oxygen to?
Mm.
What part of yourself do you want to, like, this is how I interpreted it, uh, bring back to life, breathe life into, because if you're not feeling it, you're not healing it. And I know we're talking a lot about healing, or at least in my space, there's a lot of the word healing comes a lot. But I think it's more of, in the very biological sense, it's going back to those feelings that were too intense for you to feel at some point. And instead of stuffing them down and those emotions coming back as, you know, sometimes I feel like a dinosaur, like, and then it's like there is this 3-year-old, just, driving or riding the dinosaur, and it's a big emotion. It's a really big, it feels really big, but in the end, it was something that has been ignored, usually for a longer time. And the thing is, it's always information about where like, it's always information to get back to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's where we got hurt and we didn't know what to do with it, right? Like we didn't know how to cope with it at the time or how to understand it at the time. Um, and the thing that I've learned through, whether it's the dinosaur or the dragon or the dark closet or whatever, just that terrifying place where we don't really want to, peel away the layers, is that it really is our desire in disguise, and which I find is a much more exciting way to face it, because and I can feel like getting a little verklempt, like even talking about it, but it's that part of us that was so wounded, right? Like if you had this terrible gaping wound that just festered and got worse and worse because nobody um took care of it for you, right? And like nobody noticed, nobody wanted to like help you feel better. And so this horrible wound just got worse and worse. You would be like a dragon, making sure nobody touched it, making sure like you could keep it away. And so that's what when we have a dark place and when we feel our fierce, fierceness come out, or when we're so scared to like whatever that thing is, when we look at it in that way, like, oh, this is my desire trying to help me get to that place. Because once I addressed, and I keep looking down because my leg is here, I'm like acting like I have this wound on my leg. Once we like address this big awful discomfort, then all of a sudden we're back with our desire, right? Then we're back
Mm-hmm.
to that more tender part.
And you can be vulnerable again, because you don't have to spend all your energy on covering the wound, putting
And protect.
something on it, protecting it, but you can just, okay, there's a scar now. The skin looks
Yeah,
different, but
and I know
you
that
don't need
better.
to be, yeah, but it's there. I can feel the scar. I can feel the scar. It has, you know, it's not numb. And that way
Mm.
you can actually be vulnerable on that part too. And you can be out there. And out there, I mean authentically present. Because if something is really hurting you, then you go to great lengths to pretend it's not there, overcompensate. And this is something that, as a sales professional, and I think this is also maybe the idea of like salespeople. Like it's someone there, maybe with a mask, overly nice, wanting something from you. The whole idea of someone working on you.
Yeah, and wanting something from you.
Yeah, and not being honest about what is. And I want to challenge that. Like obviously we do have a lot of like We have a lot of people on the world, like in the world, a lot of ways of doing sales. But the thing is, what I find is, especially now, the business has changed. People are like, people know what they want. And people are, what I find, people are demanding honesty. And for me, being authentically there, not meaning like, oh, I'm posting all my life on Instagram per se, but knowing your boundaries, and also just saying no when you need to say no, and presenting, okay, this is what's going on. I really truly believe that that I could really help you with this. I can see that you're and you're painting a picture. And you honestly, you feel it in your body. You're not faking it, but you're standing in all that you are on. And it's more about, it's not about me. It's about how I can help you. And that's how you get to a different frequency. Instead of, okay, so I'm listening to you. Instead of really listening to you, having my heart open, my ears open. I'm thinking of ways to respond. I'm trying to optimize things. Okay, if I say this, then you will act this way, and daga daga daga. And I don't think I think, and I know there are better ways of doing sales than that. And it comes into being authentic, being there.
Yeah, and don't you find that, and this connects to that spirituality of sales piece, right? That like it it puts into practice, um I don't know if put in the practice is the right thing, but it's a practice of self-worth for the person asking for the sale, right?
And it comes back to boundaries. Because when you're everything to everybody, you're nothing to no one. And this is something that Elizabeth Gilbert, she had this world tour, and I was listening to her, the author of Eat, Pray, Love,
Mhm.
and also the movie. She said, when you take the rope from around your throat and place it around your feet, you have a holy place.
Mm.
And you don't invite people with their dirty shoes just to walk in to your holy place. You have to treat it with respect. But the thing is, how can others do that if you don't take the rope around your neck and place it around yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, honoring yourself, owning your voice. Um and the thing is, it's not about us. And I think that
Mm,
that's something that I've struggled with, like, writing my about me and putting my work out in the world is when I can be like, hello, Kimberly, this isn't about you. This isn't about them liking you. This isn't about them wanting you. This is about you've created something, and who knows where that inspiration came from, right? Like back to desire, back to listening to our feelings and following those cues. This is you're just the portal. You're just the portal. And so don't think they're buying you, right? Like you're not a prostitute. You're
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
say a bad word.
For those who didn't see, my kid came in, and but that's the thing. Like, in the end of the day, it's not about you. And also, you take the pressure away when you can, flip the script and you take sometimes the laser sharp focus on, oh, you didn't work it optimally, oh, you didn't work that way, whatever it is, I should have done this, oh, the post isn't working. When you take that and put it on a higher scale, how do I really believe that this can help you? It's really making a change in your life and theirs.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to like the energy or behind like or the intention behind the action, right? Like it's the intention behind the action or the choices. Oh, hi.
Someone came from the park. And also why I want to keep this also like not to trying to pretend like, oh, someone isn't hungry there or someone didn't come from the park, because this is life.
Hmm.
And things happen, things change. How you think that you can plan things, but it's more about also having yourself grounded when things do change. And I feel that that's also an important part of staying true, and also staying true to your boundaries, you know, because you don't have to force and push and put things into a box just for the sake of the box. But you can recreate the box, like, and now I'm looking at my home and I'm like, this is literally a box. It is.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a it's a projector too, right? It's projecting like it's your place. It's like a projector and a canvas, and you get to choose what that is. And that's the great thing with like intention is that like that plant on your windowsill or, the statue behind me, we can plant whatever intention or seed, whatever intention we want to the objects in our home. So, like you said, you were in a home that already it was fully furnished, even though it wasn't your choice or your design or your curation, you could still plant your intentions into every piece of furniture in there so that it would have deeper meaning, right? Like,
Exactly. And I have to jump in, like, talking about, talking over each other. Um, what I found challenging was that the colors didn't feel like myself. They didn't feel like mine at that moment, or that I wanted to have something different. And I think it all grew bigger as it became more evident that I need to start my own business.
oh, interesting.
And the space, like when we first moved in, it was like paradise. It was like, oh, wow, like I'm here. Wow, wow. And I started I was headhunted pretty fast. I started as a sales executive. I thought it was my dream job. And pretty soon, all the frustration that I had around my life in Finland came back. I was like, oh my freaking goodness. Like, I can't be changing jobs and selling my life and, moving through continents every time. Like, I feel frustrated. And instead of, staying frustrated for the next 3 years, I decided, like, I need to nip this to the core. I need to find the root cause. Why am I so freaking frustrated all the time? Why do I feel that someone is preventing me from doing something? And
Oh,
hint, hint,
interesting.
it's never someone else. It's usually
Yeah.
yourself. But the stories, again, the stories. and how my perception of the surroundings, the environment, how it also changed when my internal state changed.
Well, and that's it, right? Like that's epigenetics and neuroplasticity right there.
Hmm.
As within, so without.
Exactly. And when we think about our thoughts, it's it's our mind's attempt to like figure out what's going on with our bodies. Why am I tense? Oh, it's the dog. Oh, it's my boss. Oh, it's whatever it is. And but the thing is, as long as there is this tension within the body, it's always going to be something. Is it true? For the body, it's true. And if you believe the thought, it becomes true. However, it's also the key to your own liberation. Like you said about the fear, I think it was amazingly said that you have this amazing Joseph Campbell quote on your Instagram feed.
Oh, yes, it's the it's I does is it about the cave? Like the cave you fear to enter
Yes,
holds the
it's
treasure you seek,
okay. So let's
something like that.
see.
I think it's the
The
cave you fear to enter, or the place you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Something like that. Does that sound
exactly,
about right?
exactly. And I have to say, um, so I had a, it's been crazy few weeks. So first, I lost the watch that I got from my mom when, like, after she passed away. And she died in a house fire. And there wasn't much physical objects that survived from that accident. And she's so showing the dinosaur. And the watch, it was one of the things that I took from Finland with me to Canada because it was I felt this connection to my mom when I had the watch. It was my power watch. It was this really nice classic golden Tissot with small diamonds and a seashell, kind of the inner part. Really nice. I took it to the jeweler to ask the price. It wasn't, like it wasn't that valuable in monetary sense. But every time I wore it, I felt this sense of power. And I don't know where it is. I lost it. I
It was after the birthday party, right? Wasn't it after a
yeah,
children's
yeah,
party?
yeah. So we had the birthday party, and that's when I noticed like it's not here. And when I realized that the watch was gone, I felt like my stomach dropped 2 feet into the ground. I feel all my intestines just, and my chest felt so heavy. I went to my husband like this when it occurred to me that the watch is gone. The watch is gone. And my husband knows how much the watch meant to me. And it was like, oh, honey, I'm so like, what are we going to do next? Because I felt that a part of me went away with that watch because that watch was not only my connection with my mom, but it was also a sense of being powerful in business because I felt like my mother's energy was like really strong-minded, creative. She was a classical pianist and just, a powerhouse. And this is again, this is my story. And having her watch in my wrist, I'm standing taller. different songs playing in my head. Going into the meeting, oh, different energy. And now,
I can look. I can look.
oh, I'm going to talk with Kimberly a bit more. Would you like to come and talk with us? Ah.
I can look.
And when the watch being gone and not having that anchor to that emotion, I felt lost. However, there is this amazing book that I was reading at the time by Tosha Silver, and she introduced this really interesting idea of offering. So she was talking about her friend who is a really successful author, and someone took her necklace from her neck when she was in Brazil or in South America. And she was devastated because it held a lot of, it was really valuable for her, not only monetarily, but also emotionally. And she was devastated. And in the book, Tasha describes how she was introducing the idea, but what if it's the universe or God or life, how do you want to call it, taking something away so that something new can come into your life. And even though in the moment I felt so sad because I felt that, I had lost something, I also, in a deeper way, I knew that I hadn't lost anything. But it's an invitation for something stemming from me, not from someone else, from me, to come and fill the space. So that my anchors are not relying on someone else's emotions, someone else's behavior, someone else's emotional state. But I can find those anchors not only in myself, but also in my home. Like, oh my goodness, all the clutter I had in Finland. Oh, and those stories.
Yeah, that's freeing. And it will be interesting just to see if the watch comes back. Like maybe if the watch is really right there, but it wanted, like life wanted you to see something differently, right? Like,
Exactly. Because it was
because
about the fear. Again,
yeah,
we're going to the emotion of fear and finding it from within. Come here. Because to be honest, I don't know if it will come back or not, but I know that I faced a fear like that I hadn't faced before. And it had the liberation that I was looking for. Because
and that was right. Like that was a backwards gift.
that was the gift. And finding that sense of, I want to say power, because I think it comes back, like when we're thinking about business, when we're thinking about money, it comes to power, it comes to energy, it comes to influence, right? And for me, this watch being my sense of like part of my business identity, so to speak, I think it was just an interesting timing for sure. And I'm really looking forward what comes out of this. Like you said, the stories, everything in our homes, our jewelry, what they hold. And is it even my story, to be honest?
Really interesting question.
Can you hear her singing?
Yeah, it's really cute.
Hey, exactly. If people want to work with you, how can they find you?
What my website is schoolofholisticdesign.com, and like we mentioned earlier, on Instagram, School of Holistic Design.com. Those are the best ways. And then my email is Kimberly at holisticinteriordesign.com.
And also you have a lot of different programs coming up, eh? Like for the
Yeah.
summer, like courses and stuff.
Yes, I'm starting in September. I'm going to offer the next round. I've have my first round of graduate students. They are all about to graduate, and so September 4th, I'm going to be offering the next round of the certification program. So that's certification in both holistic design and neurospatial linguistics, and then the integrative coaching program. And then I'm also offering to people maybe not interested in certification, the reset program. And that's going to be a 6-week live guided program where we each week will meet on a call and we go room by room through your home and we talk about the relationship of each room to specific areas of our life. And then people can bring their pictures and, get help on what's going on in their space. So it's a fun way to go through the material. And in the past, when I've done it, we've created lifelong friendships around the planet and it typically is all women. So it's just a really fun, engaging, and intimate little community.
And from my perspective, the potential for change, that looking at your home and looking at the spaces that you're in, just the raw potential, even just into looking those things, like looking there, putting your attention there, it's vast.
It's really like if people want to change their life, there are a lot of ways we can change our life. The fastest and what I think is the most fun and easiest way to
I
make
love
change.
fun,
Yeah, it's
fun.
fun and it's instant and lasting is just understanding what your space is like influencing in your life. Like we can make change happen like that. So it's really rewarding. Yeah, it's a good change maker
And
that
this is
how.
a way how cleaning can become fun. Like if you're not into cleaning, but if
Hmm.
you want to make it fun, this is the way. When you get curious about what's going on. Oh shoot. That's
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, so yeah, making
Yeah, there's
cleaning fun.
yeah, like if there's something going on in our life that we don't like, our house guaranteed is telling us a story about it.
And one thing before kind of wrapping up, um, I remember we were living in Victoria and I was meditating after doing yoga, really happy, just, like, oh, really grateful for everything that was going on. And then this panic hit. Where did I pack the children's book that was given to me when I was 5? And the anxiety was real. Did I pack it? Did I give it away? Oh my goodness, what if I gave it away? But again, to those stories that like the things we have in our spaces that they hold and how they either support us being aligned with our true nature or how they are keeping us away, maybe in the common, in the familiar, in the not so inspiring about me bios that you feel that you should have used a different word, but you didn't because it would, yeah, I don't want to put it out there because what if, da 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 da. But what if?
Yeah, using our what ifs for what we want and not our what ifs for our fears, right? Like being
Oh,
what ifs.
what if it will work out?
What if
Just what if?
it's better than anything we could imagine?
And the thing is, you really don't know. You have this idea of how it's going to look like, but in all honesty, you don't know. And that's where the potential lies, because what if it's, like you said, it's greater that you could have ever imagined?
And it probably will be.
Probably. Yeah. Kimberly, thank you.
Oh,
This was a
thank you.
blast.
Yeah, I knew it would be. I knew it would be. We'll have to have a part two.